Kijino is a lonely, useless guy who did not have a girlfriend, but in reality, he's secretly an insanely powerful Dark Lord who leads a team of hot elite assassins, all ready to clap at any time. At school, there was this typical attention seeker named Akane who always tried to be nice to him, even though he clearly didn't want to get close. I think guys he is interested in boys. Tell me in the comments, what do you think? She only did it because he was the only guy not drooling over her like the rest of the school. Akane was a super famous cute girl and born filthy rich, which you are not, so being ignored really bugged her. But behind her sweet and smiley act, Akane was hiding something dark. When she was younger, some gangsters kidnapped her and did terrible things, leaving her with deep scars and PTSD. Ever since, she pretended to be this perfect girl everyone loved, just so no one could see how broken she really felt inside. One evening, after spending the whole day helping with the school festival, Akane waited for her driver but he never showed. With no ride in sight, she had to do something she hadn't done since her trauma: walk home alone. What she didn't know was her poor driver was actually getting beaten up by some goons elsewhere. Not long after, more thugs showed up and surrounded her. Before she could react, one of them knocked her out with a cloth soaked in some kind of drug. She later woke up in a sketchy, rundown building. That's when they told her the plan. They'd release her once her filthy rich parents paid up. But what the kidnappers didn't count on, Kijino was out doing his usual night patrol and he was about to crash their little party. Things took a dark turn when one of the thugs got aggressive and tried to force himself on Akane, even slapping her when she tried to fight back. The moment triggered all the horrible memories from her past, and she broke down in tears. But right when it felt like all hope was gone, Kijino showed up like a total badass, calling himself the stylish ruffian slayer. Yeah, the name was kinda cringe, but his entrance wasn't. Without wasting a second, he sent the first thug straight to hell. But then came the next guy way tougher. This one wasn't your average street punk. He was an ex-soldier, built like a tank. Strangely, that got Kijino fired up, since he'd always wanted to fight someone like that. The battle kicked off, and at first, the guy had the upper hand with his dagger. But soon enough, Kijino flipped the script and beat the guy into next week using crowbars, no less, to rework his face. Once both goons were out cold, Kijino freed Akane and disappeared into the night. But instead of celebrating, he sulked, doubting his own strength. Meanwhile, Akane's wealthy parents hushed everything up, as expected. Nobody could track down the mystery vigilante behind the mask, aka Kijino. The next day, when Akane greeted him, he surprised her by calling her by her real name. That tiny gesture showed he finally respected her. But sorry, this wasn't some fluffy love story. Their little connection was short-lived, because Kijino got into an accident and died. Yeah, just like that. In his final moments, he had a brutal realization. Even all his strength wouldn't save him from something like nuclear war. He'd be toast in seconds. But then, like fate had a twist, the biggest villain in anime history, Truck Kun, hit him with the ultimate upgrade reincarnation in a fantasy world. Now, in this wild new life, Kijino had insane magic powers and a squad of hot elf girls who were obsessed with him for no reason. He finally got to live his dream as a shadowy mastermind, leading a secret group that hunted evil. But even then, he stuck to his favorite role, playing the clueless background character while secretly being the strongest guy around. In this alternate world, Kijino was born into a family of Dark Knight trainers. His mom is blessed with big beauty, and his dad was kind of a joke, just like some of you. He even had an older sister who seemed way stronger than him, but only in public. Behind the scenes, it was always Kijino causing chaos in the shadows, punishing any fool who dared to step up. Thanks to his new powers, he got this creepy black slime body that could turn into any weapon or shape he wanted. And he used it to show weaklings where they truly belonged, flat on the ground. Sure, part of it was for justice, but mostly, he just needed the cash. I mean, who doesn't in this economy? So, one night during his regular routine, Kijino stumbled upon this weird, nasty-looking blob of flesh. He figured, why not? And started using it as a live punching bag just to blow off steam. But plot twist, after getting pounded for a while, the blob morphed into a super hot elf girl. The second she transformed, Kijino immediately switched gears and dropped the fists. As the elf slowly regained her mind, Kijino struck a dramatic pose like he was some dark savior from a light novel and claimed he had broken a powerful curse. To make it more epic, he spun a wild tale about a demon lord named Diablo, whose minions had turned her into that gross slime creature. He told her she was one of the 3 heroic bloodlines that sealed Diablo long ago. Since she bought every word of his made-up backstory, Kajino took the opportunity to rebrand himself. No more ruffian slayer nonsense, he now went by the name Shadow. He invited the elf to join his secret squad to destroy Diablo. She instantly agreed, swearing loyalty to her savior. That elf? He called her Alpha, and she was the first member of his fake but deadly serious group. From that moment on, Kajino's over-the-top acting kept fooling people left and right. The simp squad kept growing, and he eventually built an elite team of obsessed followers called Shadow Garden, basically his own loyal cult. Meanwhile, to keep up his nobody persona, he let his big sister Claire beat him in fights, always acting like he was the weaker one. As Claire turned 15, she was supposed to transfer to the Academy of Dark Knights, but on the day she was meant to leave, she mysteriously disappeared. Alpha and the rest of the team assumed it was Diablo's secret cult, mistaking Claire for one of the legendary hero bloodlines. On the flip side, Kajino figured his earlier brainwashing had gone too deep, and now his squad thought every random gangster on the street was part of some evil group. Either way, he kept the act going like a pro, and that night, the Shadow Garden went full stealth mode, determined to track down the kidnappers and rescue Claire. Meanwhile, Claire was stuck in some shady hideout, tied up and not in the mood for anyone's crap. When her kidnapper casually mentioned going after Kajino, she totally lost it and showed her true colors. But before she could do anything, the guy sucker punched her straight into unconsciousness and revealed his real plan to use her blood for some twisted ritual. Too bad for him, his plan got nuked the moment Kajino and his team showed up. Turns out, all of Kajino's dramatic stories weren't made up after all. These buffed up freaks were actually real members of Diablo's cult, working to bring their demon boss back. As soon as they figured that out, Alpha and the rest of the squad launched an all-out attack. The main kidnapper bolted, but he couldn't escape his fate. Later, he ran into Kajino and immediately regretted everything. Despite being built like a tank, the guy's punches didn't land. Kajino danced around every hit and sliced him up with just a few clean strikes, turning the guy into a walking jigsaw puzzle. Even when the thug juiced himself up with power-boosting drugs and went full Super Saiyan, he still couldn't stand a chance against Kajino. After all that chaos, Claire managed to return home safely and headed off to the Night Academy. With her gone, Kajino thought he could finally chill out and enjoy some peace. But nope, Alpha and the girls hit him with another shocker. They announced they were splitting off to pursue their own missions, still committed to hunting Diablo, but now doing it separately. Kajino was left confused, wondering where he went wrong, but the girls promised they'd always stay connected. Fast forward a few years, Kajino makes his way to the royal capital to enroll at the Midgar Academy. But since he's still obsessed with playing the background extra role, he goes out of his way to stay unnoticed. He lives in the worst dorms, hangs with the nerdiest misfits, and even makes dumb dares just to embarrass himself. One morning, after losing a bet, his buddies force him to follow through on the punishment, confessing his love to Alexia Midgar, the school's cold-hearted princess. She's turned down every guy who's ever tried and shredded their confidence along the way. Kajino, playing the role of a cringe king, nervously stammers his way through the confession, and to everyone's shock she says yes. Just like that, he's pulled into what looks like a full-blown romantic comedy. Even his friends are left speechless, wondering where this sudden riz came from. The next day, Alexia even joins them for lunch, and thanks to her deep pockets, the broke squad finally gets to eat something besides Scrap's actual meat. But Kajino? He's miserable. He just wants her to dump him so he can go back to being irrelevant. Sadly, Alexia seems to be enjoying every second of messing with him. Later, she even drags him into a fencing session led by Xenon, the head of the Royal Knights. While Xenon goes on about fighting for justice or whatever, Kajino's eyes are glued to Alexia's sword fighting technique. Kajino soon noticed something about Alexia. Her fencing style was nothing special. It was strictly by the book, plain and predictable. And oddly enough, that's exactly what he liked about it. But things got weird when he overheard her chatting with Xenon and realized the two were engaged. That's when it hit him, maybe she was just timing him for some twisted reason. Feeling played, Kajino tried to break up with her. But before he could even finish the thought, his so-called friends had already spilled the truth about the stupid bet behind his fake confession. Alexia, furious but still putting up her cold act, threatened to expose him. But her words weren't nearly as persuasive as the shiny gold coins she waved in front of his face. Like a loyal poopy chasing money, Kajino gave in. From that day on, People started calling him a gold digger, but he stayed by Alexia's side mostly to fight off inflation, of course. But this new dynamic didn't sit well with Zenon. One day, while on the train, Alexia went off on Kajino, ranting about his dull fencing. Kajino just stayed quiet, letting her talk, but then asked why she didn't want to marry him since he's the perfect guy. Alexia replied that he was too perfect, which only made her more suspicious, as if he were hiding something or just plain insane. A few days later, on another train ride, Alexia started mocking his fencing skills again, saying his style was just as dull and flavorless as she was. But Kajino calmly said he actually liked her style simple and real. That somehow triggered her big time. She exploded, venting about how she always lived in the shadow of her genius older sister, and how much she hated his guts. Then, without another word, she stormed off the train. But karma had its own plans. On her way home, Alexia got kidnapped. The next day, Zenon arrested Kajino as the prime suspect behind her disappearance. Kajino didn't resist, he let it happen. Meanwhile, Alexia woke up in a dungeon, locked up next to some creepy, gross-looking creature. Thinking Kajino was behind all this, she panicked. But then a mad scientist strolled in, drooling over the idea of using her royal blood for some evil experiment. When she asked him why, he explained he needed her blood to resurrect the Demon King. While this was going on, Zenon's lackeys were torturing Kajino pretty badly. But instead of breaking, Kajino was actually enjoying it. In his head, he turned the whole situation into a contest seeing which one of them could act more brainless. Spoiler, they were both winning. Back in the creepy lab, the scientist failed to extract enough blood from Alexia. Frustrated, he turned his rage on the ugly creature beside her, trying to protect the thing. Alexia screamed to get the scientist's attention back, but that just made it worse. He forced her to vomit from pain, draining her both physically and emotionally until she could barely stay conscious. Meanwhile, back at the academy, Zenon met with Iris Midgar, Alexia's badass older sister and a state princess. Together, they began crafting a plan to locate and rescue Alexia. But when news of Kajino's arrest reached Beta, she had a full-on meltdown and tried everything to break out of the dorm so she could save him. A few nights later, after Kajino was cleared and sent home, he sensed some shady guys trailing him. But before he could react, Alpha silently handled them and later appeared in his room, telling him she returned the moment she heard he was in danger. Kajino, shocked to see her again, was even more surprised when she said she was still expanding Shadow Garden. Things got weirder when she correctly guessed that Alexia had also been taken by the cult. Alpha didn't stop there. She gently laid him down, began undressing him, and asked about his thing with Alexia, clearly feeling jealous. Kajino promised it was all part of the act, so she backed off and told him that Beta would visit next. To impress Beta, Kajino set the stage with rare paintings and vintage wine he'd stolen during his side missions. It worked. The moment Beta walked into his room and heard him talk in his deep, dramatic voice, she was totally love-struck and impressed. She also shared that the girls were prepping to strike the cult that very night. Later, as Kajino began his secret operation, two of Zenon's men tried framing him by planting Alexia's scent on him. Kajino didn't waste time. He wiped the floor with them, and Beta made mental notes of how smoothly he handled the situation. As both Kajino's crew and Beta's team worked to find Alexia, the creepy scientist returned to her cell. He injected the strange creature with Alexia's blood, hoping to bring back the Demon King, but the plan flopped. Instead of a resurrection, the creature mutated into a brutal monster and tore him apart. Oddly, it didn't harm Alexia and even broke her chains before escaping into the city like some twisted version of Godzilla. As Alexia left the prison, she ran into Zenon, the real creep behind her torture. He insulted her bloodline, calling her weaker than Iris, which pushed her into a rage. Sadly, even her boosted power-up wasn't enough, and she lost the fight. With nowhere to go, Alexia wished for a miracle. That miracle arrived. Kajino. After giving a bold speech, he stepped in, and Zenon quickly recognized him as the masked vigilante. Still full of pride, Zenon charged at him but ended up humiliated. Just then, the giant monster broke loose, wrecking the city. The knights under Iris's command tried to stop it, but were swatted like insects. Iris stepped up and landed a solid slash, only to realize the thing could regenerate. She tried cutting it up to stop it from healing, but even that didn't work. Finally, Alpha jumped in. With one clean strike, she realized the beast wanted to be freed and completely destroyed it, releasing it from its pain. With the monster gone and Alpha standing tall, Iris was left stunned. She couldn't help but fan over the powerful elf and asked for her name, but Alpha just told her to sit tight and enjoy the rest of the action. Elsewhere, Zenon, desperate to win, juiced himself up with more performance enhancers and faced off against Kajino again. But even on steroids, Xenon was no match. Kajino crushed him easily, then added insult to injury by mocking him, pushing Xenon to pop even more pills in frustration. As the two clashed, Alexia watched from the sidelines and realized something: Kajino's sword skills, while insanely strong, were incredibly simple, just like her own style. Still, Xenon refused to quit. In one final act of cringe, he threw on a dramatic costume and declared himself the chosen one. But Kajino had had enough. He unleashed his ultimate move, Atomic Slash, which lit up the sky and completely wiped Xenon off the face of the earth. The glow from the blast made all of Kajino's fangirls swoon from afar, while Alexia proudly swung her sword in victory. As Kajino disappeared into the night, Iris showed up, finally reunited with Alexia. The sisters hugged, happy to see each other alive, and finally worked through their messy relationship. The next day at school, Alexia approached Kajino, blushing as she thanked him for complimenting her fencing. She shyly asked if they could stay together a little longer. Kajino, being his usual unbothered self, turned her down on the spot. That didn't go well. Alexia swung her sword at him in rage. Meanwhile, the Shadow Garden girls were still recovering from how cool Kajino had been. But now there was a new issue: some imposter was using their name, so the team decided to wipe out the fakers. On the other side, Iris, now suspicious that Xenon was behind Alexia's kidnapping, started her own independent night squad. She also discovered an ancient relic that she believed could lead them to Diablo's cult. To decode it, a new pink-haired girl named Sherry enrolled at the academy. On her first day, she literally bumped into Kajino, who had just survived Alexia's fiery mood. From that moment, she fell head over heels for him. Meanwhile, a masked vigilante claiming to be with the Shadow Garden started roughing up people across town. Kajino, still totally unfazed, assured his awkward friend group that he was still a proud virgin after the breakup. Soon, his goofy friends dragged him along to visit the city's newest hotspot, a flashy megastore. Back in Iris's world, Sherry agreed to help her figure out how to unlock the powers hidden inside the relic they seized from one of Diablo's cult bases. Back in the city, Kajino and his crew reached the superstore, only to find a long line. While waiting, Kajino looked around and noticed the place felt oddly familiar, like something straight out of his old world. Suddenly, a gorgeous woman approached and pulled him aside for a survey, making his confused friends wonder when he became so popular. The woman led him into a luxurious setup where Gamma, one of his Shadow Garden members, was waiting. She proudly revealed she'd used the random knowledge he gave her to build this wildly successful megastore, now earning millions. Kajino was stunned. What started as casual nonsense from him had turned into something massive. Still, since Gamma was brilliant, it didn't totally shock him. She then invited him to sit on a throne she prepared but clumsily tripped and got a nosebleed. Kajino sat down like a boss, keeping a cool face while feeling like royalty inside. To reward everyone, he used cheap sparkles for dramatic effect. But Gamma, like always, was beyond thrilled and said it was the best moment of her life. Finally, she showed him a vault of 1 billion gold coins, revealing just how profitable her empire had become, all thanks to the fake advice he had given ages ago. Kajino starts sweating as he stares at more money than he's ever seen. Still, he keeps his cool and casually asks Gamma about the recent fake Shadow Garden sightings. Gamma shares a theory that makes Kajino briefly wonder if Alexia might be behind it, considering her violent tendencies. As he heads out, Gamma introduces him to a new recruit from her girl squad and assigns her to assist him. Before leaving, Kajino slyly asks Gamma for 3 packs of chocolate, and even swipes a few gold coins to ease his constant money problems. That night, while returning to the dorm with his friends, Kajino senses someone nearby. Pretending he needs to pee, he slips away to investigate. But instead of finding Alexia acting like a fake Shadow Garden member, he sees her being attacked by the actual imposters claiming to be them. True to form, Kajino doesn't jump in right away. Instead, he watches calmly as Alexia struggles to handle multiple enemies alone. But when things get risky, he steps in and wipes them out with ease. Alexia, clearly annoyed, asks why he doesn't use his strength to help the world. Kajino simply tells her to shut it and walks off, leaving her to collapse in frustration. He then hunts down the rest of the thugs and delivers them to one of Gamma's operatives for questioning. Meanwhile, at the enemy base, their boss, a Goblin Slayer-obsessed freak, orders his men to focus on recovering the stolen relic, ignoring the deaths of their fallen. Later, when Alexia informs Iris about the fake Shadow Garden attacks, Iris replies that she doesn't care about cults or underground groups. Her only concern is protecting the kingdom. The next day, Kajino and his goofy friends attempt another round of fake love confessions to random girls. As expected, both losers get knocked out by angry boyfriends. But Kajino, just trying to get it over with, hands some chocolates to Sherry, unintentionally winning her over again. As she eats them later, daydreaming about her perfect future with him, her adoptive dad believes it's love at first sight. He even assumes Kajino must be head over heels to gift her something that pricey. Meanwhile, New enrolls in the academy undercover and tells Kajino that the crazy cultist they caught hasn't said a word about the fake Shadow Garden group. She explains that most of the members seem drugged and brainwashed, except for one named Soldier Rex. Kajino, tired of the drama, suspects there's a deeper plot and tells New to keep digging. Soon, his two dumb friends reveal they've signed him up for the Bushin Festival, hoping it'll boost his popularity and help him get a girlfriend. During the event, Claire takes out some low-level fighters to blow off steam. Meanwhile, background characters try to gamble but lose everything. In his first match, Kajino faces off against Rose, a skilled warrior princess. He realizes that to stay under the radar, he has to lose. Even though he has many chances to win, he fakes getting knocked out with dramatic blood and takes a dive. The ref declares Rose the winner, but Kajino keeps getting up again and again like a moody anime character. Rose eventually respects his grit and finishes him with her special move. As he's wheeled off like a mummy, Sherry shows up, takes him on a date, and gives him homemade cookies. Kajino, now stuck in another accidental rom-com, is caught off guard when Sherry says she wants to start as friends before they sleep together. Just as he agrees, she introduces her dad, the head of the kingdom's research unit. That's when Kajino realizes he messed up by getting involved with main characters and decides it's time for a short break. That evening, Sherry found herself once again lost in thoughts about Kajino. Unable to shake the feeling, she went to see Alexia, pretending to casually ask about her relationship with him. The truth? She was jealous. When Alexia admitted they weren't together anymore, Sherry excitedly claimed she could now date him freely, leaving Alexia annoyed and clearly uncomfortable, since she still had feelings for him. Though Alexia acted cold and distant, the mental image of them together nearly gave her a meltdown. A few days later, as Kajino returned to class, Rose appeared and spoke about an upcoming school election. Meanwhile, the Goblin Slayer wannabe cult leader activated a magical barrier using an ancient relic, trapping the entire school. Kajino noticed something felt off, and when he tried using magic, it didn't work. Soon, cult members in cloaks barged into their classroom and demanded everyone get on the ground. Rose refused. Trying to be heroic, she drew her sword, unaware that her magic wouldn't work in the barrier. Just as she was about to get crushed, Kajino stepped in and protected her, only to be tossed aside and treated like a side character. Rose, however, interpreted it as him being in love with her, and her delusions escalated. Though everyone thought he was done for, Kajino was actually thrilled. This was the kind of terrorist attack he'd love to tell his grandkids about. The cult's leader gathered the students in the auditorium, while his men searched for the relic in Sherry's possession. Kajino revived himself and realized he could still use magic in small, controlled bursts. Meanwhile, as Sherry figured out how to activate the relic, Rex burst into her room through the window. He announced he was there to steal the relic and cause chaos for fun. Swinging his sword at her, he assumed she was finished until Kajino appeared, casually stepping in to save her. As Sherry escaped, Kajino stayed back. Watching from above like a true shadow boss, he scoffed at how predictable these cult imposters were. They were copying his style poorly, following every rule and clumping all their hostages together in one spot. That's exactly where their leader had to be. Since flashy entrances aren't really his vibe, Kajino sticks to stealth. He moves silently through the halls, wiping out squad after squad without being noticed. Suddenly, he spots the clueless pink-haired Sherry, completely exposed and running around like a lost puppy. Without revealing himself, he eliminates everyone aiming at her. When it's finally time to show up, he makes a dramatic entrance, catching her mid-fall like a classic knight. Seeing the blood on his clothes, Sherry panics and asks if he needs a hospital, but Kajino brushes it off and scolds her for being so reckless. They head to the library for cover, where Kajino begins to suspect that Sherry is clearly the main character of this arc. He even wonders where her usual comic relief sidekick is. Soon, Sherry explains that the relic the enemy is using can block magic, while the one she has can cancel it out. She also reveals the relic only absorbs magic it has sensed before, meaning Kajino's low-frequency magic goes unnoticed. She adds that the device only works in spots with heavy magical energy, Kajino instantly realizes that the enemy's relic must be set up in the auditorium. The two decide to team up. Sherry will decode the relic while Kajino stops the cult's big plan. As Kajino heads to retrieve her tools from the study room, the cult leader mocks Rex, blaming him for failing to stop one weakling. Rex snaps back, warning him to worry about himself. Half the army is already gone. With that, he storms off, determined to track down Sherry again. As the cult leader stepped back into the school, he noticed his forces were mysteriously gone. Before he could react, Kajino landed a clean punch to his face. Too fast to track, Kajino caught him off guard. In desperation, the leader created a magic barrier around himself, but Kajino was already inside, right in the middle. Within seconds, the self-proclaimed villain was overwhelmed and sent flying into a church littered with defeated cult members. Shaken by the scene, he lost his composure. Kajino appeared behind him and silently finished the job. Meanwhile, News searched through Sherry's office and found one of her guards, an ex she clearly wasn't happy to see. Before things escalated, Kajino arrived to pick up the equipment needed to stabilize the relic. New let him know the Shadow Garden agents were already in position and waiting for his go-ahead. Kajino told her not to move until everything was ready. While Sherry worked to activate the relic, students in the auditorium grew uneasy. Iris's knights held back, unsure if more threats were inside. Though Rose wanted to help, she doubted their chances of winning. Eventually, Sherry unlocked the relic's power and led Kajino through a hidden passage her father once showed her. Kajino enjoyed the sneaky approach, while Sherry recalled the painful truth behind her mother's death caused by the very man she'd once trusted. Back in the auditorium, cult members aimed weapons at the students. Their leader watched with satisfaction. Rose, frozen by fear, couldn't respond. But when Sherry tossed her relic into the air, it synced with the enemies, breaking the magical barrier. With their powers restored, Rose took down an attacker. Her action sparked hope, and the tide began to turn. As things get wild, both sides start going at each other hard. Rose struggles to handle the number of attackers coming her way. Just when she's about to go down, Kajino shows up with another cool entrance and compliments her sword's skills. Funny enough, she still doesn't realize he's the quiet guy from class. Meanwhile, Kajino and his crew wipe out the cult members left and right. The weak cult leader, realizing he's losing, tries to escape, but not before setting the whole school on fire. Rose just barely manages to get the students out. Iris finally arrives but ends up being no help. Elsewhere, Sherry looks for her dad but finds nothing. At the same time, the cult leader sneaks into Sherry's study and sets her books on fire. Turns out, the Goblin Slayer knockoff was her adoptive father all along, something Kajino had already figured out. When Kajino asks why he did all this, the villain gives the usual sad backstory. He used to be a top-tier swordsman, but an injury ruined his career. Now he's just bitter and angry. He even admits he got rid of Sherry's mother because she was in his way. He challenges Kajino to a fight, but Kajino couldn't care less. The old man gets one strong hit in and nearly kills Kajino, only for him to come back stronger than ever, like the Dark Lord he really is. The guy panics and powers up using magic-enhancing drugs, turning into some hairier version of Voldemort. But Kajino easily dodges everything and slices him apart, ending him just like he did Sherry's mom. Sherry walks in, breaks down, and warns the man who raised her. Kajino quietly leaves, never telling her the truth. The next day, Kajino makes front-page news as a global villain, which doesn't sit well with Alpha and the others. Sherry visits him before leaving the school for good, saying she's moving to a new city for her research. When he asks why, she just says it's a secret. Kajino goes back to enjoying a peaceful life until he gets a letter from Alpha inviting him to a mysterious Holy Land. While Kajino chills in the Holy Land, his loyal fan club keeps growing. Even Delta and Epsilon have joined the madness. Epsilon, who definitely doesn't believe Flad as Justice, uses Kajino's slime magic to upgrade her figure, turning her chest into a full-on competition against Beta's curves. Behind the scenes, this new beauty spends her time writing novels and fanfiction with Kajino as the lead in her daydreams. But when she hits writer's block, she steps outside only to get into a silly rivalry with Epsilon over who's Kajino's favorite. Epsilon argues he stares at her more thanks to her upgrades. Beta isn't buying it, but before they can really fight, News shows up with new orders from Alpha. Meanwhile, Gamma meets Iris and Alexia at her department store. She helps them shop for Alexia's upcoming appearance in the Holy Land competition. Gamma also hands out fancy chocolates and helps Alexia pick some stylish undergarments. Iris, being more conservative, says Alexia is revealing too much skin, but Alexia proudly flaunts her confidence and her figure while teasing Iris into silence. At the same time, Rose joins Kajino on his trip, daydreaming about saving him from danger and being his one true love. Kajino, though, isn't thrilled about the clinginess and kindly pushes her away for space. Rose keeps rambling about future weddings and kids while Kajino focuses on learning about the local religion, the divine teachings, and the three heroes who once visited the Holy Land. While exploring the market, Rose shows him a souvenir about Olivia, one of the heroes who sliced off Diablo's left arm. She explains that this arm is now sealed in the sanctuary nearby. They also go book shopping, and Kajino's surprised to learn Rose's favorite romance writer is Beta, who's been selling a bootleg Cinderella story for millions. He gets her autograph but feels dumb for not using his own ideas to earn money like Beta or Gamma. Later, he realizes Beta signed his copy using ancient script, something he quietly hides. Elsewhere, a darker version of Alpha sneaks into the local church, only to discover the Archbishop and his team have already been wiped out. Suspicious, she retreats before she can be caught. That night, Kajino watches over the city like a quiet villain, eating ice cream. Then, with zero hesitation, he uses the ice cream stick as a weapon to slice down an imposter. Right after, Epsilon appears, showing off her enhancements to win him over. But Kajino, focused on the mission, doesn't even blink. After hearing her report, he says he'll handle things his way and walks off. The next evening, he visits a hot spring to relax, only to run into Alexia, already soaking. She's shocked to see him, especially after buying all that fancy underwear. Though Kajino pretends not to care, Alexia checks him out and says she's glad he survived. As they chat, Alexia mentions she's here for the goddess's trial, where chosen warriors fight spirits from the past. Kajino, uninterested, says he's just visiting. She complains that he's ignoring her figure, and he explains he prefers keeping his eyes to himself in hot springs. When he asks her to stop staring at his long sword, she calls him crazy for naming his useless sword. But Alexia is quickly proven wrong when Kajino casually stands up in the hot spring, leaving her stunned and questioning everything about herself. After he walks away, she's left flustered, mentally spiraling. The next day, the goddess's trial begins. The new archbishop opens the ceremony with a long, boring speech. Alexia can't help but mentally curse the bald guy, not just for ignoring the previous archbishop's suspicious death, but also for canceling her investigation and embarrassing her earlier that morning. Just when she's about to zone out, Beta steals the spotlight. Now a famous author, she's introduced as the guest of honor. The crowd roars when she appears, especially when she bends down and steals everyone's attention. Alexia, feeling insecure, gets jealous that she's not getting the same admiration. Beta's smug attitude doesn't help either, especially knowing Alexia used to be close to Kajino. The tension between them is obvious. Things shift as Rose is announced. Soon, the trial begins. The first challenger, a scrawny guy, calls for an ancient spirit but gets ignored. He walks off in shame. Next up, a bulky knight tries but also fails. Meanwhile, Kajino watches it all from above, daydreaming about making a dramatic entrance like a mysterious hero. He debates whether to reveal his power or stay in his usual background role. But his inner debate ends fast when the announcer suddenly calls his name. Across the city, his team spreads out to gather intel and take up their positions. Back at the arena, the audience mocks Kajino, expecting him to flop. Kajino considers running but instead triggers a blinding light and steps out in his shadowy alter ego form, thinking it'll boost the event's hype. He gives his classic speech and summons a spirit to fight him. The Archbishop assumes Kajino is full of himself until the sky opens and a powerful figure appears. His opponent is Aurora, the legendary Witch of Calamity, known for bringing destruction across worlds. Watching from the stands, Beta pulls out her notebook and asks the Archbishop for more info, while the other girls roll their eyes at her shameless curiosity. Still, it works. The Archbishop explains how dangerous Aurora is and doubts Kajino can survive. But Alexia, ever the supporter, insists that the trial summons spirits equal to the challenger's strength. She believes Kajino has what it takes. Meanwhile, Kajino senses something different. As he faces Aurora, he feels a spark, like they both speak the same language through swordplay. Aurora strikes first, and Kajino smoothly dodges. While the Archbishop thinks he's failing, his loyal girls smile, knowing he's just getting started. As the fight rages on, Kajino keeps up the pressure on Aurora and eventually slices through her strongest magical defense, ending the match. Aurora, surprisingly, is content with her defeat. She feels understood not just by Kajino's blade, but by the way he sees battle as a form of connection. Also, a part of her seems to enjoy losing. After delivering the final blow, Kajino dips out quickly, calling it a solid main character drop moment. Right after, the barrier around the Colosseum shatters, and a strange portal opens thanks to Alpha and her crew working behind the scenes. Elsewhere, Kajino praises himself for putting on a show-stopping performance. But before he can catch a break, another glowing portal appears in front of him. Not wanting more trouble, he tries to ignore it, but the thing keeps following him. Eventually, he gives in and walks into it. Back in the Colosseum, everyone is confused about what's happening. The bald Pope explains that the portal likely opened in response to Kajino's insane power. He adds that the gate doesn't appear for just anyone, it only reveals itself when someone is seeking it. With that, he orders the crowd to evacuate. Just as people begin leaving, Kajino's girls show up and tell everyone to stay calm. Epsilon easily takes out the Pope's guards, and Alpha and Delta step through the gate. Epsilon, staying behind, grabs the Pope and prepares to drag him along, threatening to hurt Beta if anyone tries anything. But Beta is unfazed. Instead of panicking, she gets strangely flattered, and Alexia pretends not to care. Suddenly, a masked assassin appears and cuts Epsilon's fake assets in half, hitting a nerve. Just to make things worse, Beta's natural curves bounce right in front of her. Not wanting to be exposed as flat, Epsilon uses her slime tricks to reinflate herself, then destroys the assassin. Making sure no one saw her real self, she drags the Pope into the gate. Moments later, Beta gets pulled in as well. With everyone else gone, Alexia and Rose refuse to be left behind. They jump into the portal just before it vanishes. On the other side, the two land awkwardly on top of Beta. Alexia uses the moment to silently compare their figures and confirm hers aren't as fake as Epsilon's. As the team moves deeper into the sanctuary, Alpha reveals a shocking truth. The entire story of Diablo is a lie. Inside, they see a statue of the hero Olivia, who looks exactly like Alpha. Furious, the Pope calls her a failed project, proving Epsilon's theory that the cult's history is fake. Still clueless, Alexia follows Alpha into another room, only for the elf and Olivia's image to vanish completely. Meanwhile, Kajino comes across the familiar sight of Aurora, tied to a chair. He casually asks if she's the one who summoned him here. Aurora, clearly not behind it, asks if he can help untie her. Without hesitation, Kajino draws his sword and slices through the restraints. With her free, the fan service moment is short-lived as she quickly gets dressed using magic. She then proposes they work together to escape this strange memory world. When Kajino asks how, Aurora explains that all they have to do is destroy the magic core keeping the sanctuary active. The problem? They can't use magic near the center of this prison. Still, Kajino assures her he's got it covered. Elsewhere, Alexia and the others are watching past memories of Olivia, learning how the cult used orphans in experiments, merging them with both hero and demon blood to create hybrid warriors. Back with Kajino and Aurora, their journey takes them into a greenhouse where they find a younger version of Aurora crying. When Kajino asks why, she jokes that she probably wet herself. She slaps the memory to move forward. Back at the lab, Alpha explains how Olivia was one of many children implanted with demon cells. The Pope argues it was necessary to defend against Diablo if he ever returned. Alpha isn't convinced. She reveals the church's real plan wasn't to destroy Diablo, but to extract more cells to continue their experiments. The next scene shows a battle where a group of weaklings manages to cut off Diablo's arm, which was later used to build their drug empire. This leads to the heart of the sanctuary, where the arm is now sealed. Alpha explains how the cult turned the cells into an immortality elixir, but since it could only be produced once a month and had to be consumed yearly, only 12 people could use it. Shockingly, the Pope is one of those 12. Alpha suspects the cult still wants to fix the drug's flaws like hair loss and needs someone with Olivia's blood to do it. Hearing this, the Pope breaks free of his bindings, only for Delta to immediately pierce him and throw him off the ledge. Epsilon scolds her for acting too soon, but Alpha suspects he's not finished yet. She's right, the Pope bursts out again, fused with a blob-like creature that separates the group. Alpha, Beta, and Delta get pulled into a new battle zone, where he shows off a low-budget bodysuit and uses shadow clones to boost his army. But Delta still rushes in and beats him down until her magic starts vanishing. He reveals that magic is being drained in the sanctuary's core while his is growing stronger. Still unfazed, Delta keeps attacking. Meanwhile, Kajino and Aurora are suddenly dropped into the same battlefield, with Aurora landing awkwardly on top of him. After getting up, they find another vision of young Aurora crying again. This time, Aurora decides to end the cycle for good using Kajino's sword. Before she can act, zombie-like creatures appear. Kajino quickly jumps in, defeats the undead, and earns Aurora's praise. He then attacks the final memory of the crying Aurora to erase it completely. Epsilon wanders deeper into the sanctuary and stumbles upon a mysterious library. With her squad, she begins looking into old records about past experiments. Knowing they probably can't take the books with them or remember every detail, the girls snap photos of the pages to save the information. Suddenly, something strange happens. Their clothes start fading away. Epsilon assumes it's due to their magic weakening. To her horror, even the slime she used to enhance her figure slips off. Embarrassed, she tells the others never to speak of it again, just as she reattaches everything. Elsewhere near the sanctuary's core, Aurora and Kajino arrive just as Delta charges into battle. She throws off her coat and continues to crush the Pope, even though he keeps multiplying himself, thinking numbers will help. But Delta still demolishes him, and in doing so, breaks the memory. The Pope, in shock, asks how hundreds of his clones lost so badly. Alpha replies, 0 times anything is still 0, roasting the IQ of every copy. Meanwhile, Kajino and Aurora discover a legendary sword that can break the chains binding the core. Kajino tries to pull it out, but it rejects him since he's not the chosen one. With nothing else to do, they decide to rest instead. Elsewhere, the cult's leader panics when he learns the core has been breached. In a last-ditch effort, he summons Olivia to fight Alpha, but Alpha and the others leave before the fight begins, having already gathered the information they needed. Back at the core, Kajino asks Aurora why she wants to disappear after the core is destroyed. She explains that reliving painful memories over and over again has become unbearable, and she'd rather be free. Kajino nods, thinking the true main character of the arc should be appearing soon, only to be disappointed when the Pope walks in instead. Determined to stop them, the Pope orders Olivia to finish both Kajino and Aurora. Aurora warns Kajino of Olivia's strength and tells him to run, but he stays put, confident that plot armor will protect him. As the fight begins, Olivia blitzes him with insane speed, landing clean hits. Yet Kajino just grins, clearly enjoying the challenge. She even slices his arm, but he doesn't fight back. To him, a real fight should come from emotional connection, not just raw power. Just as he's about to take another hit, Aurora steps in and thanks him for everything. The Pope mocks them, laughing at the idea of a witch playing the hero. But Kajino, refusing to be the damsel in distress, takes a major blow on purpose. Using the close distance between them, he pulls Olivia in and marks her neck with a magical symbol, causing her to vanish. Kajino calmly explains he can shift his organs with magic to avoid fatal damage. This trick lets him get close to his opponents and counterattack effectively. Not done yet, the Pope launches a second attack, this time summoning 100 copies of Olivia. Even with more enemies thrown his way, Kajino finishes them all off with a single powerful move. As his magic kicks back in, he explains that he had compressed it so tightly that the surrounding energy couldn't absorb it. Now that he's in full control again, he's unstoppable. Angry, the Pope sends out even more clones of Olivia, but they barely last a moment. Kajino wipes them out like they're nothing. Finally, he charges up one last attack using atomic-level magic. But just as he fires, Olivia manages to stab him in the chest. Even so, Kajino doesn't flinch. He powers through the pain and obliterates the entire sanctuary, including the magic core. His team watches the whole scene from a distance, amazed. Later, Kajino wakes up in a peaceful garden, resting with his head on Aurora's lap. He casually explains that he moved his heart to the right side of his chest to survive. Aurora, confused by the logic but charmed, calls him entertaining, but then she begins to fade. Before disappearing, Aurora admits that she was the one who summoned him there. She had wanted to escape her past and be free, but now, after meeting Kajino, she doesn't want to forget any of it. Kajino thanks her for the time they shared. She touches his face and kisses him softly before dissolving into stardust. Meanwhile, Alexia and the other girls wander through the woods. Alexia complains about feeling useless through the whole ordeal, and Rose agrees. They still don't know much about the cult or Kajino's group. Beta asks what they plan to do about it, and Alexia suggests forming a girls' squad to investigate. Beta doubts Alexia's ability to play detective but goes along with it anyway. Alpha, having learned that the sanctuary, sword, and core were all destroyed by Kajino, is beyond impressed. She supports Beta's idea to join Alexia's group as a spy. Then, Alpha reveals something shocking. Aurora wasn't just anyone, she was actually Diablos. Kajino had unknowingly kissed the legendary demon herself. Still, Alpha decides not to tell him, assuming he already figured it out. Later, Gamma buys a cheap property full of oil to expand her empire, while Delta runs off to play lone wolf. Elsewhere, Alexia reports to Iris, sharing everything she knows about the Church of Divine Teachings and their ties to the cult. Alexia wants them taken down, but Iris says she doesn't have enough power to convince their father the king just yet. Instead, Iris says she'll compete in the upcoming festival to gain influence. Alexia worries about both the cult and Shadow Garden causing chaos during the event, but Iris is confident her sword will stand strong, claiming the past attacks were caused by magical tools, not true skill. While Rose trains with her sword, she suddenly feels a sharp pain in her chest and notices a strange symbol forming over her heart. A few days later, the long-awaited Bushin festival begins. From high up in a skyscraper, Kajino watches all the contestants and sizes them up. He predicts who'll lose, who might surprise the crowd, and who has no chance at all. As usual, he dreams about pulling off his favorite trope, pretending to be a totally average background character who secretly wipes the floor with everyone. To make that happen, he visits Gamma and asks her to help him disguise himself for the event. When she questions his intentions, Kajino dodges the topic and tells her not to ask weird questions. Respecting his wishes, she pulls out all her cosplay gear and even uses some cosmetic tricks from the old days to change his facial structure. He chooses the look of an awkward, forgettable guy who hasn't smiled in years and walks with slouched shoulders to seem unsure of himself. On the first day of the tournament, he gets stopped by a loud, overconfident champion who dyed her hair terribly and thinks she owns the arena. She tells Kajino to back out now because there's no way someone like him would win. He doesn't respond, but inside, he feels excited his disguise is working. She's followed by a group of fans, including one bulky guy who clearly thinks he's tough. One glance tells Kajino this guy's all bark, no bite. The musclehead tells him to follow the champ's orders, giving Kajino the perfect setup for a savage one-liner. He claims he's still stronger than the third-rate goon in front of him. Triggered, the guy punches Kajino hard enough to send him flying, but Kajino gets back up without a scratch and mocks him as weak. Furious, the guy keeps beating on him until the champ finally tells him to stop. She then tells Kajino to forfeit, but when she realizes he's completely fine, she apologizes. Kajino just shrugs her off, calling her arrogant and telling her to mind her own business. Later, while waiting outside the tournament grounds, Kajino starts striking odd poses in public, wondering if people are starting to see him as the dark horse of the event. He remembers having lunch the day before with his quiet friend Skell, who told him that the top contender this year is Princess Iris. On his way home, Kajino ran into Rose, who said she'd be leaving for a while to get engaged to a man named Asuka. She also mentioned that Alexia and Beta don't get along at all, which Kajino suspects is because both are equally intense in their own way. Before parting, Kajino handed her a burger he bought and told her to loosen up. Rose smiled and asked him to believe in her and her mission to serve her kingdom well, and Kajino simply nodded. Back at the festival, Kajino watches the opening round with his clueless buddy who's busy wasting money betting on losers. Just then, Goldie, the undefeated champ of the last 10 years, shows up acting all flashy. He claims he can tell a fighter's strength just by looking at them. When it's Kajino's turn, Goldie says he only has 30 power points compared to the 1300 of his massive opponent. But Goldie ends up embarrassing himself when that big guy trips on his own and Kajino wins the round. In reality, Kajino had punched the guy so fast no one even saw it. Anos catches a glimpse of it, and her brain can't handle what she just witnessed. The next morning, Skell shows up uninvited with breaking news: Rose has gone missing. Meanwhile, Alexia and Beta also hear about how Rose stabbed her fiancé before running off. Beta says they should be careful since the guy she stabbed is high profile, but Alexia, being impulsive as always, wants to go save Rose right away. When Beta argues, Alexia grabs her by the collar and threatens her like a child throwing a tantrum. After storming off, Beta tells her crew to track Rose quietly. Kajino, meanwhile, reads the news and finds the whole stab and run situation kind of cool. Right before his next match, he walks out of the stadium and bumps into a hooded girl who says he smells like elves. When she removes her hood, she looks just like Alpha. Kajino lies, pretending he doesn't know anyone like her. To test if he's some evil lord in disguise, she attacks him with her sword, but he dodges like a total weakling. This puts her mind at ease, and she helps him up, saying she'll become strong one day. Elsewhere, the meathead and the arrogant champ discuss Kajino's power. The jock thinks it's just luck, but Anos feels like Kajino knows what he's doing. As their match begins, Anos reveals that Goldie's undefeated record is fake. He just skips fights he thinks he'll lose. Goldie charges at Kajino with his giant sword, but Kajino easily dodges while casually cracking his neck. Goldie gets emotional and gives a dramatic speech about how blank Kajino's expression is, hoping for some underdog magic. But right as he uses his ultimate move, Kajino just sneezes and knocks him out cold, winning again. Meanwhile, Iris visits Ashit and Rose's dad to talk about her disappearance. She offers help, but Ashit uses her past stance against Alexia's kidnapping to reject her, saying they'll handle this as a private matter. His smug tone annoys Iris, and she notices he doesn't look nearly as injured as the papers claimed. Rose's father also seems oddly out of it, like he's not in his right mind. On the other side, Anos admits she misjudged Kajino but still claims she's too powerful for him to win. Kajino, who's been secretly prepping since his Naruto days, leans in and warns her one last time. Then he drops the weights from his arms like he's full-on Rock Lee mode. She's shocked, but still confident. Kajino, though, doesn't seem to care at all. Elsewhere, Rose is being hunted by her own guards. She hides deep in her city's sewer system, trying to survive. The next day, Scale barges into Kajino's place again, urging him to help search for Rose, especially now that a huge reward is on the line. Kajino couldn't care less until he spots his sister walking up to his house. Instantly panicked, he dashes off with Scale to avoid the situation. While searching, Kajino hears a familiar piano tune he used to love in his past life. Curious, he follows it to an auditorium and finds Epsilon playing it, totally copying Beethoven's work. Not shocked but definitely annoyed, Kajino remembers how he was forced to take piano lessons as a kid, even though all he wanted to do was run around pretending to be a street soldier with toy guns. But things changed when he heard the piece Moonlight Sonata and dreamed of playing it while ruling the world. Back in the present, after she finishes playing, Epsilon thanks him for coming. He compliments her outfit in a way that makes her blush hard, then leaves her room, secretly planning to steal the piano and display it at the music academy. Meanwhile, Alexia and Beta continue looking for Rose. Exhausted and injured, Rose hides in the filthy sewers after running non-stop from her nights. Her wound gets worse, and she realizes something's trying to take control of her. She remembers her last moment with her fiancé, when she realized her dad was drugged and controlled by Ashit. When she raised her sword and barely cut her fiancé, her own guards turned on her, forcing her to escape. As she sinks deeper into despair, she suddenly hears her favorite piano tune, Moonlight Sonata. Following the sound, she discovers Kajino finally living his fantasy, playing the perfect dramatic tune as his edgy alter ego while everything around him fades into the background. As Rose starts clapping like a total fangirl, Kajino casually asks why she's even there. That somehow inspires her to unload her whole sob story about how she wanted to protect everyone but couldn't. Hearing this, Kajino calmly gives her a bit of his power and tells her to keep fighting. Then, like the badass he is, he vanishes in style, and her chest wound magically heals up. Right after, a group of masked guards try to surround her, but Rose wipes the floor with them in seconds, powered up with Kajino's magic. Feeling this massive energy shift, Alexia and Beta track her down, but when they arrive, Rose tells them to back off. Beta instantly realizes that Rose didn't just get stronger, she caught Kajino's cool and edgy attitude too. Alexia reminds her of their "we'll always support each other" promise, but Rose has no time for cheesy talk. Instead of chatting, she just throws hands and easily beats Alexia. After that, she ditches them and walks off alone, ready to live her new lone wolf life. Meanwhile, Kajino returns to his dorm and finds Claire at his door, not happy at all. She pulls him inside, sits on top of him, and chokes him out for making her wait too long. Kajino, half dying, wonders if this is some weird new kink. She rants about how he didn't go with her to the countryside during summer break and gives him a VIP ticket to the Bushin Festival as a way to make up for bailing. As he barely escapes Claire's fury, Alexia finds out that Beta has also left the city. The next day, the Bushin Festival semi-finals kick off. Kajino enters the VIP section and surprise finds Iris sitting beside him. She doesn't recognize him at first, but once he mentions Claire, it clicks. Realizing he's the same guy her knights bullied when Alexia was captured, she apologizes. Kajino just stays quiet, worried that getting this much attention could ruin the side character role he's worked so hard to keep. Iris hopes he'll stay friends with Alexia, but he straight up tells her he was only pretending to be close to get money from her. When someone asks Iris who she's rooting for in the match, she says Anos. Curious, Kajino asks what they think about him. Turns out, they just see him as some weak dude who tries to look cool just cause he's a little fast. This makes him realize he could have been an award-winning actor if he tried in his past life. Before his next fight, Kajino heads to the locker room and runs into that elf girl from earlier, now revealed to be Beatrix, the queen of fencing. She just asks about Alpha again and casually swaps her hamburger for the one he brought. Then Ashit shows up and asks Beatrix who she thinks will win, Anos or Kajino. Iris respects Anos' strength, but says Kajino has a sharp, confident look in his eyes and just maybe, He might surprise everyone. Sure enough, as the fight kicks off, Anos rides her high horse again, thinking she just needs to outspeed him to win. Even after landing multiple hits, Anos can't break through Kajino's calm defense. When it's finally his turn, he casually shifts behind her and slices through her shoulder, breaking her armor and ending the fight instantly. Watching this, Ashit nearly panics. Kajino's power shakes him so much, he's stuck choosing between trying to recruit him or wiping him out before things get worse. After the match, Anos admits she was wrong about him and apologizes for being cocky. Kajino nods, compliments her strength, and they part on respectful terms. Meanwhile, Iris finishes her own match and spots Beatrix, inviting her to watch the next round. Beatrix, cool as ever, offers her a hamburger in return. On finals day, Kajino is enjoying some chill time in the VIP seats when Iris shows up, still awkward around coffee. He tells her to drown it in sugar and milk, problem solved. While she finally enjoys her sweet drink, Beatrix arrives but gets blocked at the gate because of her sword. Iris quickly clears it up, revealing Beatrix's true identity. The guards go from tough guys to full-time fanboys, but Beatrix pays them no mind. Her attention is locked on Kajino, who she believes has crazy potential. Elsewhere, Ashit brings a drugged Rose's father to a royal event, planning to use him like a puppet. His actual mission? Assassinate the neighboring king to trigger a war that benefits the demon cult. But now, with Kajino around, even his backup plans feel shaky. At the venue, Beatrix smells something off about the king and bluntly calls it out. Ashit snaps but backs off quickly when Iris reminds him who he's messing with, a legendary warrior. Now, he's left fuming and anxious, realizing his mess just got bigger. As the final match begins, Iris takes one look at Kajino and feels the pressure. Determined to end the fight fast, she goes for an opening but freezes when she suddenly imagines Kajino slashing her down. Each time she tries again, she sees another vision of defeat. It's like Kajino's mind games are rewriting the whole fight. Meanwhile, Rose crashes into the VIP lounge and finds the cult's entire team already taken down long before the real show even started. Turns out Shadow Garden had already cleaned up the cult behind the scenes, pushing Rose to continue her mission. Back in the ring, Iris keeps backing off, unable to attack. The crowd gets loud, mocking her hesitation, and she finally charges in. But once again, another vision freezes her in place. Kajino takes advantage and slams her straight into the ground. The entire kingdom watches in shock as Iris gets completely humiliated. Her father quietly leaves the arena in disappointment, while Ashit starts freaking out, realizing just how strong this guy really is. But before he can make a move, Rose steps into the chaos and apologizes to her dad for everything she's done. Surprisingly, the old man, still under mind control, speaks from his heart and forgives her. This makes Ashit furious. Rose suddenly charges forward, and Ashit uses the old man as a shield. Without a second thought, Rose stabs through him. Showing no remorse, she gets ready to finish Ashit too, revealing that her goal was to wipe out the royal bloodline so it can't be used as a tool for war anymore. Before she can do it, Kajino steps in and reveals his true self. He's Shadow. That's when Rose realizes he's the masked hero who once saved her. With teary eyes, she confesses she's been his biggest fan ever since. She leaves the scene, and Kajino turns toward Ashit, ready to end him, but Beatrix jumps in to block the blow. As chaos breaks out across the arena, the king declares martial law and sends his troops after the fleeing Ashit. Meanwhile, Kajino and Beatrix clash swords in an intense fight. Watching this, Iris finally pieces together who he really is, and it enrages her. Determined to take him down herself, she joins the battle. But Beatrix can't keep up. Kajino's speed is too unreal. Each time she tries something, he just dodges it like a breeze. Iris then pulls out a shady artifact, hoping to even the odds. Kajino instantly mocks her for relying on cheap tricks. That's the final straw. She unleashes a powerful strike. But to Kajino, dodging it is nothing more than warm-up. And all this while, Beatrix's blade still can't land a single hit. Meanwhile, Rose runs into Alpha, who gives her two choices: join the Shadow Garden and save her kingdom, or go solo and crash hard. After thinking it through, Rose picks the first option and officially joins the Shadow Garden. Elsewhere, Kajino is dragged to the streets by Iris and Beatrix, who try everything to beat him down, but Kajino tanks all their attacks like it's nothing. He grabs his favorite weapons, crowbars, and fights them on a moving train, staying completely in control. Beatrix fights with calm precision, but Iris keeps yelling nonsense, so Kajino finally shuts her up with a clean kick to the face. After Beatrix slices through his crowbars, Kajino pulls out his real weapon, his slime sword. Feeling unstoppable, he tells her she can't beat him because her energy doesn't come close. Iris, full of rage, charges in again with another fiery move. But Kajino shrugs it off like it's warm air. She and Beatrix try to double-team him, but he kicks Iris in the chin and walks right past her. Even after getting owned, Iris acts like she's still winning and warns him that the kingdom's army is hunting him. Kajino laughs it off, asking why he would run, especially when even a royal like her is no threat. Then, just to make a point, he unleashes his atomic magic over the whole city, threatening to wipe it out but spares them and vanishes instead. Iris breaks down, crying on the ground while Beatrix stays silent. Days later, newspapers call Kajino the demon of the century, and Ashit gets chewed out by his cult for letting Rose escape. He promises to capture her again soon. Meanwhile, Rose enters Shadow Garden's training area, where the first lesson is how to serve fan service properly. They strip her of her name, rank, and even her clothes, and wipe her memories, especially those of Kajino. Emotionally, it messes her up. Somewhere else, Kajino secretly plays his favorite sonata, finally feeling like he's achieved everything he ever dreamed of. And with that, his wild fantasy comes to a close. And that's it for today's video, guys. Watch the following video and I will see you in the next one.